Okay, so let's talk about that feeling, the one where you feel like you're not fully in the driver's seat of your own choices. Today, we're going to dig into the hidden forces, this invisible architecture that guides our decisions, often without us even realizing what's happening.
You know this scene. We've all been there. It's supposed to be a quick trip. You're just running in for milk, or maybe some eggs. You've got this laser focus, a clear mission. In and out. That's the plan. And yet, somehow, 15 minutes later, you find yourself at the checkout. You look down at your basket, and it is full of things you didn't even know you wanted. And you just stand there, a little dazed, thinking, what's just happened? Now, the story we usually tell ourselves in that exact moment is almost always wrong. We immediately tend to blame ourselves, right? We think it's some kind of personal flaw. That little voice pops into our head, the one that sounds a lot like societal judgment, and it says it's a failure of self-control, a simple lack of willpower. That if you were just more disciplined, this wouldn't keep happening. But here's the thing. This isn't a story about your personal character. Not at all. It's a story about design, about patterns, and honestly, it's about a brain that is incredibly good at its job. The truth is, when you're walking those aisles, you're not always making conscious choices. A lot of the time, you're just following an invisible script, a sort of psychological mechanism that's running the show in the background. See, our brains are wired for efficiency. They are built to save precious mental energy, so they create shortcuts for everything we do repeatedly. So what feels like a spontaneous decision is often just the final act of a play your brain has performed hundreds of times before. This is all driven by a core concept from behavioral science called the habit loop. And it's really this elegant, energy-saving process that runs on complete autopilot, deep beneath our conscious awareness. It's a really simple three-part sequence. First, there's a cue. That's the trigger that tells your brain which script to run. That cue then kicks off the routine, which is the automatic behavior itself, like grabbing the bag of chips. And finally, there's the reward, that little satisfying feeling that tells your brain, hey, this whole loop worked. Let's remember it for next time. So how does this kind of abstract idea play out in the real world? Well, that supermarket isn't just a building with shelves. It is an environment that is perfectly designed to be your brain's co-pilot. I mean, think about it. That warm smell of baking bread right when you walk in, that's a cue. The big, colorful, perfectly stacked displays at the end of every single aisle, those are cues. Even the very layout of the store, the fact that you have to walk past the chips to get to the milk in the back, is a whole series of cues. So with every trip to the store, this environment is literally training your brain. You see the bright sale sign? That's the cue. You grab the soda, that's the routine. You get that little jolt of pleasure, and that's the reward. It's not really manipulation in some sinister way. It's just your brain adapting and learning from the world around it. Okay, so you know about the cues and the loops now. And that should be enough to stop it, right? You just decide not to. Well, unfortunately, it's not that simple. There's a really powerful, kind of counterintuitive truth at play here. It's the logical next question, isn't it? If you know the trick, why do you still fall for it? It's because these habits, they aren't just ideas. They are actual, physical pathways in your brain, carved out by repetition over years. Just being aware of them isn't enough to magically pave a whole new road. This quote just gets to the absolute heart of it. What we admire as iron-willed self-control in other people is so often just masterful environmental design. Those people aren't necessarily better at resisting temptation, they're just better at removing the cues from their path. And that's the key. Changing your environment is almost always more effective than trying to muscle through with willpower. And this brings us to what I think is the most empowering takeaway from all of this. It's a reframe that can shift how you see not just your shopping habits, but maybe even yourself. If you've ever felt weak or frustrated or just plain dumb because of your own behavior, I want you to hear this. Your brain is not broken. It's not flawed, and it is not working against you. In fact, it's doing its job perfectly. Your brain is an adaptation machine designed over millennia to automate tasks to save energy for new challenges. This habit loop isn't a bug. It's one of the most brilliant features of the human mind. So the final question really isn't how to fix your brain, but how to get curious about its design. If the grocery store is built to cue certain behaviors, where else does this architecture exist in your life? Your phone notifications? Your morning coffee ritual? Understanding this architecture is the first step toward consciously deciding which scripts you actually want to follow. And maybe, just maybe, that starts with something as simple as taking a different route through the store next time, just to avoid the snack aisle altogether.